Welcome to Being a Lot podcast, the very first episode. If you're sitting in a 9 to 5 feeling like this cannot be it, this is not what I want to do with my life, I want to get out there and see the world, I want to do something that I feel matters to me, then this is the place for you. This is a podcast where we are going to talk about digital nomad life. We're going to talk about mental health and navigating life, especially after mental health struggles. Welcome to Being a Lot podcast. My name is Ebba and I am your host. And before we get into more what this podcast is going to be, I want to introduce myself. I am Ebba and I'm a lot. I am a digital nomad from Sweden. I am a business owner and a digital marketer. I am a mental health survivor. I am sober. I am single in my 30s and child-free. I am a friend, an aunt, a sister. I am an overthinker, an overanalyzer. I am a fitness lover. So more than talking about what this podcast is and what it's going to be about, I want to talk more about who this podcast is for. Because I want this podcast to be for the person I was a few years ago, before I started Nomad life, back when I was struggling with my mental health. I want this podcast to be something that I would have needed back then. And also something that I would have needed maybe in the beginning of my Nomad journey. But also probably today, to be fair. So, here's the thing. I grew up struggling with my mental health a lot. Through my childhood, my teenage years, I was a very anxious child, anxious teenager. And honestly, up to my mid-late 20s, I struggled with my mental health a lot. And it took over my life so much. And I didn't have the right tools. I didn't know how to navigate it. I didn't really know what was going on. And this was something, and I don't think I really fully realized how bad it was until I was in my early 20s and I got my first job. I was, the typical good girl, got good grades, went to university, finally got my first job. And I got my job in marketing at this place that I thought was my dream job. I was so excited. And when I did, I was like, wow, this is it. I'm going to start my career. Let's go. I thought this is going to be amazing. This is it. And then I started and I was miserable. I absolutely hated it. Could not stand going into an office every single day. I didn't like being around people I didn't know. So many new things to navigate. And I just felt so out of place. I had been dreaming about this for such a long time. I'd always been dreaming about climbing the career ladder, living in a big city, blah, blah, blah. But when I was there and it started, I was like, no, this is not it. And in hindsight, I know that I was also in one of my first worst depressions. But I also remember sitting at that job thinking that, wow, if I can't be happy here, if I can't enjoy this job that is supposedly my dream job, how could I ever do something else? How can I be in an office for my entire life? How can I build a career if I don't want to sit in an office? Because that was my biggest thing. I'm like, an office is not for me. I don't want to do this. And I remember even then I started thinking about like, oh, how can I build a business? Could I start my own business? But I was straight out of university. I didn't know what I could do. I thought I had to be some really, really senior expert in something to be able to start a business or freelance. So I kind of put that aside. And I quit that job. And honestly, after that, I spent years just trying to survive and trying to deal with my mental health and get better. And this was years of my life, to be honest, where I just spent years trying to navigate it, getting the right help. I went back to school for a bit. I had some part-time jobs, etc. But it was a big part of my life where I was just trying to navigate this and trying to navigate my mental health and didn't understand what was going on. I thought something was wrong with me. And it was hard. It was really hard. And I just spent day to day surviving, honestly. I had periods of times that were better, of course, but in general, it was a pretty dark part of my life. But eventually, after years, I got better. I'm not going to say I got the right help, but I got help that was good enough for me to get out of it and for me to get out of the worst anxiety and the worst depression and deal with trauma that I've been through. And I realized I'm finally doing so well that I can actually go back to a full-time job. I think I have the capacity to do that now. So I started looking for jobs. I got this job at a marketing department at a big company, and I was so excited. And I was like, well, let's go. The past is the past. Let's try this again. Let's start my career. Let's start climbing the corporate ladder, see what's out there. And do you think I enjoyed it? No. I started at this company and I got back to where I started last time. I was like, wow, I do not want to be in an office. I do not want to do this. I don't want to do the 9 to 5. I don't want to commute every day. I don't want to sit in a train for half an hour walking in the snow in Sweden in the darkness. This is not it. And the thing that kept coming back to me was that I did not fight this hard for my mental health. I did not fight to survive this hard to sit in an office for the rest of my life. That is not it. This is not what I want to do. I had always been a person who wanted to see the world. I never really felt at home in Sweden, so I would think that I would probably get a career and I would move to a big city or something. And my mental health started going down again. I was not doing well, and I can look back and be like, these places were not the right jobs for me. It wasn't the right colleagues, etc. There's so many factors to it, obviously. But I also do believe that some people are just not meant for the office life. Some people are not meant for the 9 to 5 life. And I really think I'm one of them. I was like, I want to be able to work in a way where I can take care of my mental health. I want to be able to work in a way where I can take a day and be on the couch if that's what I need to take care of myself. And I want to work from the couch if I want to, work from a beach if I want to, work from a cute cafe if I want to. And do you know where they have really cute cafes? In Paris. So I decided that I was going to move to Paris. I decided to leave this job. I got the contract that I was on a bit extended, but I walked in and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to leave now instead. I am done. Because I was so miserable there that I just like, no, you know what? I'm done. Packed up my stuff, moved to Paris, decided to start my own business. And I decided to start my first business as a virtual assistant. And bear in mind, I had no idea what I was doing. I was terrified. It took me 1.5 years from me getting the idea to start a business as a virtual assistant to actually get started, I think it was, because I did not have anyone around me in my family or friends who are business owners. I had no experience around it. And also, this was before COVID, so working online was not really a thing. And if you don't know, virtual assistants, basically you're an assistant for companies, business owners, online, helping them with truly whatever they really need, and you can have different niches. And that's what I decided to do. And I did this to market myself towards Sweden. And I was one of the very first virtual assistants in Sweden. I was the third, I think. So this was very new, and so many people didn't believe in this. They're like, this is never gonna work. This is not a good idea. But somehow I made it work eventually. I moved to Paris, I did my thing, I started my business, got it up and running, and then I decided to move home for a bit. I was going to be an aunt. I wanted to be there for that. So I moved home for a bit, did life at home for a bit, and then I decided that this is it. Let's go. I'm going to try Nomad life. I wanted to try that whole work at a beach thing. So I did. I'm doing Nomad life now, and I've been doing it for about 4 years on and off, 2 years more full-time, I'd say. And I have honestly never been happier. And it has been such a journey. And Nomad life has given me so much. And I am so happy that I took the leap to actually do it. I am so happy that I had the guts to go out there and leave everything behind and do something that felt right for me, even though people around me said that this is probably not a good idea. Or, are you sure you're going to do this with your mental health? Are you sure you should just leave everything? Are you sure you're going to start a business? But I did, and my mental health has never been better. In general, I've never been happier. There are, of course, struggles to Nomad life as well, but for me, it has been such an amazing path. And I think it's also such an amazing path if you feel like I want to leave my hometown, but I don't feel like, oh, I want to move to a specific city, or I want to travel and go backpacking. You kind of get to both things as a nomad. Because as a nomad, what you do is essentially that you don't necessarily have one base, but you move around and spend some time in different places and working at the same time. So it's not really traveling. I see some, but because I don't really see it as traveling, but rather just moving around and having your life in many different places, which is amazing. So if you are sitting in an office, maybe you have also struggled with mental health issues, or you have been through burnout, or maybe you're just feeling like, this is not it, this is not what I want to do. This podcast is for you, because I know it can be a lot to navigate and a lot to think about, and what is it actually like. And here we're going to talk about what nomad life actually looks like, about friendships, about how you can get started. And so we're going to talk about nomad life in a real way, and how friendships look like, if you can actually travel solo, what nomad life actually means, and so much more, and how you can get started if you maybe want to do a sabbatical, whatever it may be. And this is not going to be like a business practical podcast, more about the bigger questions that might arise. But another big part of this podcast is the mental health aspect. Because here's the thing, when I started as a nomad, my mental health was a lot better than I'd been before, but today it is even better. But what happened for me was that when I got better, for me, it was really difficult to get out of depression and constant state of anxiety. And I was not prepared for that. Because when you've been living your life in survival mode, you have not had time to truly figure out who you are, what your interests are, what your values are, what you actually want to do with your life. I never had time or the capacity to think about those things, because I felt like I was constantly surviving, and my life looked completely different, because partly I had a different lifestyle, I was younger, and also I had ways of coping that were not healthy. And when I am actually doing better, there are so many questions that are coming up, and there are so many old habits you have to break, and so many new things that you have to navigate. And I think that is something we don't talk about enough. What happens after you get out of mental health struggles? What happens on the other side? And how can you then figure out what kind of life you want to live, and what do you have to think about to not fall back? What do you have to do to not get back into that depression, or whatever it may be? What tools do you need? And for me, nomad life has helped me a lot to get to know myself better, to figure life out, to know what really matters to me, but also to get better habits than I had back home. So in the podcast, we're going to talk about that, how you can find what you're aligned with and what you want to do. We're going to talk about how how you can cope with your mental health when you're a nomad, and how it has helped me so much to become a nomad, because that has helped my mental health more than I could have ever imagined. And those topics are going to merge here. Sometimes going to be more nomad life, sometimes more mental health focused, and how I navigate mental health as a nomad, and everything from bigger questions to like tiny habits that have really helped me, and also how you can navigate life when you're alone more. We're also going to talk about how you can navigate your mental health more by yourself, the tools that have really helped me, like tiny habits and tools that have helped me be more comfortable with being with myself and getting to know myself better, so that I can have a better mental health. Because becoming your best friend and being better at being alone is something you have to kind of get a crash course in when starting nomad life, because at the end of the day, if you go by yourself, you're the only one you have. Learning to be alone has helped my mental health immensely. And as a nomad, I meet amazing people all the time, and I have more friends than ever, but you also have to be more comfortable with being by yourself. Okay, so you know what the podcast is going to be about, but where does the name come from? Being Alone came to me, and as the podcast and its ideas change, I've decided to keep the name, because being alone is something that has kind of followed me throughout life. I have, for such a big part of my life, being scared of being too much, too loud, too emotional, too needy, too quiet, too whatever. And you can't really find a balance, can you? Especially as women, I think it's imprinted in us from birth that we are not supposed to be too much. And this podcast is about me doing the freaking scary thing and putting myself out there, because this whole thing has not been easy for me, let me tell you. So this is me learning to be a lot, and I want you to do the same, but it's also something else. And that is that when you choose to go outside of societal norms, when you choose to start your own business, when you choose to go ahead and do digital nomad life or moving abroad, whatever it may be, you might be seen as being a lot to society. You're gonna have other people's opinion. You're gonna have friends and family judging you, questioning you. And sometimes, I don't know, I can feel sometimes, I wish I was just happy being in a 9 to 5 in a small city back home, but I'm not. I want to go out there and want to do things that might not be what everyone else wants to do, that is outside of other people's comfort zone. And people might have opinions, but having the guts to go after it anyway, that's what we need to do. And that is essentially what being a lot is about. So if you align with this, if you want to become a digital nomad, or if you are a digital nomad and want to talk more about and listen more about how you can navigate finding your values, alignment, dealing with your mental health while being a nomad, then this podcast is for you. I'm going to have guests on this, on alignment, on what to think about if you want to take a break from your work, if you want to do a sabbatical. We're going to have guests talking about mental health. And in the next episode, we are going to talk more about just this, what digital nomad actually looks like more, and the practical aspects of it. And if you're curious about it, what real life actually is as a digital nomad, and not just the highlight reels you see on Instagram. So I really hope that you follow along and listen to that episode, and I will see you next time.